Hello, everybody. So today I figured I'd make a video showing the latest monthly numbers from Redfin, which are available through February of this year. And I figured I'd throw it on a map because I don't show maps that often because, quite frankly, I think it's a way that people can easily lie because, like, your reference point, your look back period, all of that is completely arbitrary. But also to me, it's like there's probably a little bit of bias there because it's not this sort of new shiny object to me anymore. Because like I've seen it so many times, I've used it so many times. It is helpful, but it is again a starting point. So, and even the mapping that I've seen done, like it's it's not even what people get all excited about. Like it to me is honestly just not even that impressive. I mean, they're oftentimes only throwing like one, layer of data on that when, what we're looking at here is actually two separate layers worth of data, and it's just a much more meaningful way of, if you're gonna use a map, to do it that way versus just one sort of data point at a time. So let me explain these two data points we're looking at. Uh, the points or dots, which are represented by this legend over here to the top left, is the 5 year percentage change in inventory for sale for all the counties in the United States as of February 2025. So the darker the red shading is basically the higher the 5 year percentage change. So how to interpret this? 1.68, I'll just pick on this little bucket here, to 5.33. That's 168% to 533% in terms of a 5 year change. And here's another thing to just be aware of. Like this, the way in which this data is even grouped could be like, manipulated if you really wanted to do that. I mean, this is based on a natural break, so it's like accounting for obvious outliers that would really just sort of distort these intervals. But you could do just like equal intervals worth of this data, and that would just give you a completely different rendering in terms of this like color ramping scheme. So just be aware of that. But again, it's a good place to start. Okay, start, but it's not the bee's knees. And look, I could put a 1 year change on here, a 3 year change. It's all kind of just arbitrary. So, but sitting below that, and what you'll notice is the map itself actually, and the counties, which is what you're seeing rendered below those dots. So I'll just like turn the dots off for a second. That is actually the median household income for all of the various counties within the United States. Okay, so let me just kind of zoom this thing out. The farther you go out, it'll sort of pan out to like a state level view of this information. And then you zoom in, and it's now at counties. Um, but like, look, I'll just pick a Williamson County. It's a very wealthy part of the Nashville MSA, and I'll just kind of pick on my hometown. So what's cool about this software is you can see like the distribution in household incomes, and this is on an inflation adjusted basis. So there's the under 25 crowd, 25 to 44, 45 to 64. So the 45 to 64 year olds are the wealthiest, and this is by ethnicity now. So yeah, how about that? Pretty interesting. Cool software. And look, you can even zoom in further and get the same readings down to the census tract. It just depends on which sort of data set you're looking at, how that is, but basically how it renders on a map. It could even be like a zip code view of this data. So, uh, yeah, there's that. But let me just kind of zoom out real quick and we can just sort of interpret what's happened here. All right, Williamson County, 5 year change, down 22%. Okay. But again, that's sort of arbitrary. Now up in Nashville, it's actually up 24%. So in Davidson County, that's really Nashville proper. But guys, people can lie with maps. Again, your reference period, your look back period, all of that is very important to sort of keep in mind. And you can put all sorts of different stuff on here. I mean, I could put the percentage of renters in some of these markets that are cost burden, the mix of owner, renter occupied homes and vacant homes. I could put all that on here if I wanted to. This is just, I'm just using this as an example. So, uh, yeah, it's cool, but I've just, I guess, looked at it enough times where it's not like, oh my gosh, impressive. So, a time series, guys, that's really what it all comes down to. And this is really going to be the thing that everybody should be focused on. It. This is really the gold standard. You need to see how things change over time, not just some random point in time, some measurement. So I'll explain this visual, how to interpret this. The top chart tries the bottom chart. There's a perfectly good reason I put inventory and homes sold on the uh, same chart, and that's because we're trying to show the relationship between the two. So if like home sales are low, inventory is going to be high. So they're like what, negatively correlated. So said another way, when home sales are low, you have a demand problem. Ultimately, what that's going to cause is something like inventory for sale to move higher, and in theory, put downward pressure on home prices. Now, this is based on all residential property types. What if we wanted to look at single family in isolation? It's more or less that same move. But yeah, there's all sorts of ways to configure this data that's just going to give you more insight. So uh, let's look at it another way. And this is really kind of when I'm looking at whether it's a metro or a county or a city, this is usually where I start. And then I'll start maybe even comparing this data across maybe different counties or what have you. But you, of course, have to look at things like months of supply and like percentage change and things just to sort of normalize it. But if you're just trying to get a feel for like, various counties in this example, uh, this is how I prefer to look at it, because what we looked at in the previous visual was really these top two charts. Just one was on top of the other. And I was showing this as a price per square foot. Now it's the actual price. But rather than just show inventory and homes sold as a line graph, wouldn't it be nice to know exactly what rolls up into that? And so that's where I've broken it out uh, by property type. So we can see that Rutherford County is predominantly a single family market. And even if you were to look at uh, the structural housing stock, not just what's for sale and what's been sold, but the stock of homes, this is going to be fairly representative in terms of what you see there. So, look, uh, inventory for sale, we'll call it pre-COVID. It was beginning to peak in the summer of 2019. I mean, that's pretty much right what you're seeing down here. I mean, do you understand? This is a stacked bar chart, right? It's like 16, 17. Let's see. 1,720 properties. That's how you should interpret this down here. Same thing for homes sold down here. So it's just another way of visualizing the data. Now, here's what Davidson County looks like. It's the same thing. Look, big population reshuffle. Everybody was just going crazy with all the COVID stimulus. Now, inventory for sales moving higher. We have nothing more than a temporary allocation issue in the housing market. I do not know why that's so hard to understand, because you are going to see this dip down in virtually every market. It's just the degree to which a lot of this COVID stimulus is unwinding. Here's Williamson County. Oh man, the DTIs in Williamson County look terrible. Not everybody's out there like buying homes with cash too. So I don't know. Whoever's letting these people finance some of the home purchases out there, which have just gone absolutely bonkers, is just insane. I mean, DTIs out there, depending on what period you're looking at over the past, we'll call it couple years, is like anywhere between 60 and 80%. It's absolutely insane. But again, same trend. So yeah. Well, look, I'll just leave it there, guys. But I just wanted to kind of show you different ways of looking at the data, and obviously the most recent data, to show that we're kind of at the precipice of, I would have to imagine, by uh, this home buying season that we're entering into, that we're probably going to start to see some price discovery here locally, but also elsewhere. Some markets maybe not as much, and that could be like often maybe what you'll see in some of these stronger Northeast and Midwest markets. But it may just, if you just start to see the labor market continue to deteriorate, and if it really takes a turn down, which I wouldn't be surprised if it did. That's what the data seems to suggest. Then even those markets will struggle. So, uh, anyway, all right, guys. Well, that's all I have for today. If there's a particular market that you would like me to look at, whether it's the city, zip code, even a metro, maybe we can do that. So, okay. Have a good one.